My name is Matt Ackley, and I'm here with Ken Calhoun today, and we're going to talk about RB Asset Solutions. Both Ken and I came over from the Iron Planet acquisition, and we're both formerly of eBay. And one of the most exciting things about joining the Ritchie brothers family has been, seeing the transition of Ritchie Brothers as a company that, has traditionally hosted live on-site auctions, right? Something, Ritchie Brothers has been doing for 60 years, and it's a model that we've perfected, and we run some of the best auctions in the world, highlighted by the Orlando auction that's coming up. But at the same time, with the acquisition of Iron Planet and with some of the other acquisitions, we've watched as RB has begun to transform itself into a company that's really a trusted advisor in the asset disposition process. And as part of being a trusted advisor, not only is it working with our customers to, sell equipment through auctions, but it's also, how do we bring the software, the data, the services that, we've developed internally or that have come in through acquisitions, how do we bring those to bear in a cohesive way to, continue to drive, asset recovery for our ecosystem, for all the players in our ecosystem. And so about 2 months ago, we launched Ritchie Brothers Asset Solutions. It's our first V1, if you will, of bringing out a software platform, bringing together all of our data, bundling in our services to really create an end-to-end asset disposition solution. And what I'd say is what makes us different than some of the other point solutions out there in the market today that maybe just provide data or maybe are just a classifieds marketplace, is that we bring everything together into one bundled solution. So whether that's the ability to sell across multiple channels, right? You think of obviously I mentioned the live auction. We've got the weekly auction. We've got Marketplace E, which is our buy now, make offer, e-commerce functionality. We've got Mascus as a listing service. But it's not only these channels, it's, all the data, right? That, all the data of all of these transactions over the last, 10, 15, 20 years, right? And, Ken's going to talk a lot about that today. Additionally, right, it's all of our services, inspections, asset appraisals, redeploy, the ability to host units, at our live sites, refurb, right? All of these services, right, we've brought to bear for a number of customers, somewhat, in a point solution manner, but we're really bringing those together, right? And then finally, one other piece of the puzzle that often is forgotten is, financing, right? One of the fastest growing components of Ritchie Brothers is Ritchie Brother Financial Services. And, we've spun up solutions that are private marketplaces where we market equipment to, select RBFS customers who we know are funded for certain amounts to be able to buy certain pieces of equipment. So at the end of the day, it's, Ritchie Brothers Asset Solutions is about RB being that trusted advisor, but not just a trusted advisor who works with you to conduct a good live auction. It's about being a trusted advisor that helps you throughout the entire disposition process. So what we're going to show today, right, is I'm going to briefly overview or walk through some of the components of the software platform piece of this. And we'll give you a little taste of what that looks like. And then Ken's gonna spend a chunk of the time diving into some of the new data solutions that we're making available for people in the market. So first, when you think about this process, right? You think about RV Asset Solutions. What we're really trying to do, right, is bring together everything into an area where you can manage the workflow processes, right, of the asset disposition process. So, at the core of RV Asset Solutions today is what we call our inventory management system, and at the core of that inventory management system is this homepage portal or dashboard that gives you a view into, all of your particular assets, where they are, what status they're in, what's selling where, how long has it been in stock, allowing you to easily access these assets, right, so that you can basically manage them through the disposition process. So if you take a look at the dashboard, I've got access to search right here, right away. I can see, easily drill down into, the stages that units happen to be in or the channels they happen to be on, right? And, one thing I'd say is that, all of this dashboard is configurable. So when we work with you to, sort of set this up, while, this is a software solution, we also understand that most people's disposition process is a little unique. And so as part of the integration process, we'll go through, we'll sit down with you and we'll understand, how you dispose of your assets and sort of the various things that you may need. And then we actually configure, right, this inventory management system to meet your needs. So here, this is just a sample, demo one, but, I can see, I've got, units in stock. I've got units that aren't for sale, pre-sale. We can use terminology that you guys use internally. And this is really, you sit there and you think, well, gosh, who uses this, right? And we've got people who've got, anywhere from 500 assets in here to, we work with companies that have, up to 50,000 assets in here, right? And so all of this can be configured to meet those workflow needs. But real simply, I can drill down. I can see how assets have aged, how long they've been in my system. I can link out the data tools, and Ken's going to take us there in a second. So if I want to do a search, for instance, I can go do a search on a trencher, and then boom, I'll see the inventory pop up, and what this allows you to do is work through your assets. Very, very intuitive search-like functionality. I've got nice search results here where I can see, immediately get a sense of, hey, this asset's been for sale for 35 days, it's in this category, it's available for this price, and so forth. And then, if you want to look at like advanced search, right? So once again, if you're managing a large number of assets, right, you have the ability to, specify, a whole number of needs, statuses, channels. It could be for sale on, when you last modified that piece of equipment, right? Where is it from an availability status? So, the idea here is, we've heard, for years that, how do folks do this today? Well, they manage it through a spreadsheet, right? And it's just, we're well beyond that. And so, this really gives you the capability to kind of have something in an easy-to-use, web-based tool where you can have all of your inventory at your fingertips, right? And then if you think about, hey, how do I get assets in there, right? For years, if you think about Ritchie Brothers as a live auction, company or Iron Planet, right? It's all about, hey, I work with a TM or somebody comes out and I get the, they list the assets for me. But we have a lot of people that are like, look, I want more control of this process, right? We've become a sophisticated organization. We've got our own data tools. We want to manage this ourselves. And so, we built a tool that allows you to do that, right? So, you can easily list items, right? Based on, the taxonomy that we've developed over the years. We can actually modify that taxonomy. It can be, your taxonomy. But, I can come in here. I've got a lot of options when it comes, this is a cat D6. I can choose the year, right? I can put different pricing on the items, and I'll get to how the pricing can change in a little bit, depending on what channel you're selling the item in. Hey, if I wanna have a price that I sell to the public, but I also got dealers that I deal with, I can actually set up two different prices, one to the public, one for my dealers. I can add pictures. I can embed video if I need to, right? All, my own, I can put in my own conditions, upload my own photos, videos, inspection reports, so just a very, very flexible tool to enter assets. Now, you're probably sitting there saying, well, if I've got 50,000 assets, do I have to do this for each and every one? And the answer is no. Over the years, one of the great things about, have a lot of some functionality here comes from the Mascus acquisition that we did, and they've worked with dealers and large OEMs over the years, and so there's lots of ways we integrate with any internal ERP system to sort of bring that inventory over, right, in custom ways, so that you don't even have to list assets one by one. But when they're listed, you have the ability to edit them and so forth in this easy SaaS-based tool. At the core, once an asset is in there, right, at the core of this system, right, this inventory management system is what we call workflow, because we know that as people who deal with used equipment, right, you're always, the status of that equipment is changing. I always need to know where it is, and I always need to know where I want it to go, right? What's the next stage of that equipment's life cycle? Am I gonna sell it myself? Am I gonna sell it to one of my dealers in a private marketplace? Am I gonna distribute it to a listing service? Am I gonna send it to an auction, live or online? All of these capabilities that basically, as you watch a piece of equipment move through that life cycle, how do you manage that process? And so what we've done is we've built sort of, easy workflow capabilities. So I can come into a piece of equipment, right? I can see its existing status. Oh, I'm going to put it up, for sale on a channel that requires an inspection. Boom. I can actually go out and request a pre-sale inspection. In this case, one of the ironclad inspectors will come out to your site and perform a complete, ironclad, it'll automatically be scheduled, right? Perform a complete ironclad inspection on this item, will come back, and then you can use that ironclad inspection, on your own website or on one of the RB channels. Oh, you can see this asset right now is for sale on my own website, which we call Web Shop. Right? If I wanna pump it over to Marketplace E, right? All of a sudden I'll click on this workflow option, and I'll be prompted with the categories or the information I need to fill out, right? To process to put that for sale on Marketplace E. What's my asking price? What's my notified price? What are my removal options? And boom, when I hit confirm, that gets pumped over to the Iron Planet platform, and it'll go live on Marketplace E automatically, right? And so one of the other things I think you can see here, right, is wow, you're looking at look at that currency in euros, right? This tool is available in over 37 languages, right? So it's mobile friendly, it's international friendly, because a key part of the RB business is that look, we're global. Right, and we recognize a lot of companies out there are global as well. So it's not just selling in the U.S. It's not just selling in Canada. It's the ability to move assets back and forth between, all over the world, right? To make items available in web shops all over the world, on marketplaces all over the world, and it's data from all over the world. So that is a key, part of our strategy. It's a key part of being a trusted advisor, right? The world is global nowadays, specifically, when it comes to heavy equipment. So that's just a taste of the IMS, the back end. There's a lot of functionality here. We're going to spend more time on data today, but before we jump into the data, a lot of people, hey, what is a web shop? What is can I sell it myself? And for years, RB and through some of its, subsidiaries and so forth, that we've been powering e-commerce, right, in the heavy equipment industry, right, offering people their own sort of retail web experience. And so you can see, here's just an example, right, a company, Metso, right, we power your website, right? You can have your own look and feel, your own brand, right? And this is all managed by that back-end inventory management system. So, before you send it to auction or before you put it on Marketplace, if you want to sell this yourself, we're here as a trusted advisor to help you do that in the most efficient way possible, right? And so we build, easy, nice-looking websites, right, that are custom to your brand. And you can be an OEM, you can be a large construction service, you can be a dealer, right? You can be an OEM dealer, an independent dealer. We build, as part of RB Asset Solutions, one of the things we do is we enable you to, sell the item on your own, right? Build you that retail e-commerce like experience. And so that's literally what RB Asset Solutions is about. It's about, hey, how do I integrate? How do I get my inventory into the system? How do I sell it, right, across multiple channels, right? How do I market it, right? And then finally, I'm going to turn it over to Ken now. It's, how do I analyze it? How do I use data? And as I mentioned before, right, we've got these data tools and insights, right there from the IMS dashboard. And we'll jump into that right now, and we'll show you some of the data tools that we have. Ken?
Great. Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Again, Ken Calhoun, pleased to be here. I head up data analytics for Ritchie Brothers, and we are very excited to demonstrate some of the data capabilities that we've been developing over the years. Before I jump into that, what are we trying to achieve with this? As Matt described, we are trying to help. We are a trusted advisor, and part of that is providing data transparency into what is going on in the market according to Ritchie Brothers and the Ritchie Brothers channels. And so the typical three questions that we get that we're starting to answer with this solution, which is phase one, and we're excited to develop it in multiple phases going forward. First question is what's going on in the market? What are the market trends? Is the market up? Is the market down? What's happening by sector? What's going on with pricing? Prices up, prices down. How should we be thinking about my disposition strategy? So that's the first question. Second question we get a lot of, and we ask this question all the time too, is what's equipment worth? How much is my particular make model with a certain number of hours, et cetera, is it actually worth? And so helping you actually with the valuation question. And the third question is, of course, what's my performance on the Ritchie Brothers, the many different Ritchie Brothers platforms? How can I easily see what my activity is? And so in this first phase, we're starting to answer some of those questions with you, for you, through the tools. What goes into these solutions? Well, first of all, it's the data. Matt described that, but that's key. I'll come back to that in a second. The second is developing an easy-to-use visual interface. Part of it's in the IMS that Matt just walked through. Part of it's in the data tools. It has to be easy to use. It has to be intuitive, and importantly, it has to allow you to explore the data. And the third piece is starting to layer in some of the proprietary technology that we've been building out. So we've been working, for example, on algorithmic asset pricing for over 2 years. Today, we attach an algorithmic estimate on every piece of equipment every week. And the algorithm does really well. Well, now we're able to utilize some of that methodology in showing you price indices to help you understand what's going on with respect to overall price movement within the market. So we're taking that sort of capability that we're developing internally and exposing some of that. So again, on the data, I mean, I think everybody loves the Ritchie data. And just to sort of reinforce your intuition there, this is a very robust, deep, and broad data set. So we ran a couple stats just out of curiosity. So in the last 10 years, we've recorded over 4 million transactions. We have asset locations in 70 different countries. We have buyers in over 180 different countries. Over 170 manufacturers are represented, and over 75,000 different models are in our database. So if you want to understand what's going on with a particular asset type in a particular part of the world, this is the database that you want to come back to. And this is the real deal. This is the source. This is authentic. One thing I think is interesting to understand is, we're a public company. The way we calculate our financial performance is we add up all these transactions, and that's what we report to the street. So you know that this data is scrubbed, it's audited, it's validated, and it's the real deal. So with that, let me actually jump into the demonstration here. So as Matt pointed out, we've got data tools and insights in this box. And from here, you can go to the 6 different capabilities that we've built out so far. So let me jump into that first question, which is, what's going on in the market? So I'll go to the volume trends tab, and let me make that a little smaller. So where I've come to is Tableau. Tableau is probably the leading data visualization tool out there today. It's powerful, it's intuitive, and by subscribing to this data service, you're getting access to this. Everything I'm showing you today is what you get access to. This isn't just like an admin version of the tool. This is the user version. And so what you'll notice is here we've got multiple tabs. We've got volume trends, et cetera, across the top. We'll go through each of the tabs in this short demo, and then in each of the tabs as well, you typically have a section where you can actually make selections. So for example, here we're showing overall volume trends. We have a selection on asset sector and also by location. So I can quickly change that from the US to global. The numbers are going to move around a little bit, and you're able to sort of slice and dice the way you want to see it. So for example, I might just go in and select construction. In the US, well, maybe we'll just leave it to global for now. Right, and so what are you seeing? So, all right, already I'm starting to say, okay, well, it looks like globally in the construction activity, we're seeing an uptick in 2018 versus 2017, and we're almost getting to the 2016 levels. So that sort of trend has definitely turned around between 2017 and 2018. So you hover over these boxes, you get the numbers. As I scroll down, within each of these sectors, we've actually broken out 3 of the top categories, so excavators, loaders, and dozers, and so you can see the trends within those. You can see excavators actually climbing in terms of volume more aggressively than loaders and dozers. You can see equipment age trends, so excavators, actually volumes going up. We're actually seeing the average age of items on the market starting to drop. Loaders and dozers are fairly level. We can see the manufacturing mix within those top 3 categories. You can select sort of how many you want to see. And then you can also start to see what's the buyer map look like? Where is the demand coming from for construction equipment? And how much of this is kind of interesting? How much of this is assets that are bought out of state, within state, and actually be imported? So this is actually quite interesting information that a lot of our OEMs are curious about. So that's starting to give me a sense for like, what's going on from a volume perspective in the market? Part of that question also is typically, well, what's happening with respect to prices? So I'm going to jump over to the category price indices, and here we have created a number of cuts on the price index. And let me just explain this for a second. So we get the question all the time, what's going on with prices? And the first approach typically is to try to get a basket of assets to calculate the price index. And unfortunately, that method generally doesn't work very well, because when you start controlling for all the variables that go into determining a price, you typically don't end up with many assets. So to make a kind of a long process, a long story, and a complex methodology short, what we do is through machine learning, through artificial intelligence, we create a virtual apples-to-apples comparison on pricing. So we control for factors such as the location of the item, the make, the model, the usage, the age, the feature set, et cetera, the condition. And we control for all that, and we looked at, well, what's the effective time on price? What's really the supply and demand situation? And this is the composite index. So this is a set of construction, transportation, oil and gas, and agricultural assets. But you can see, right, big run up in prices in 2014, correlated to the big oil price drop from 2014 to 2016. We saw a large deflation in prices, and then prices start recovering back in 2017. So that's on the left side. On the right side, you can actually see the inflation. So you can think about it just like the inflation statistic that you hear, first quarter inflation was 3%. That meant on an annualized basis, prices were moving up 3%. So what we can see is since Q2 of 2016, we've seen a gradual improvement in the inflation rate and actually positive since basically the beginning of 2017. What's also interesting is you're starting to see, it's just one quarter's trend for the moment, is that prices are starting to soften. So the inflation rate is actually starting to decline a little bit, at least in this one data point. Now, let me explain one thing. You're seeing data through Q3. As I mentioned, this is the data we actually use to talk about our financial results. So we have to wait a little bit to release the Q4 data. We're going to have to wait until we release our earnings, but very shortly we'll actually be providing the Q4 data and the indices through 2018. So that's starting to give us a sense of what's going on with prices. I could look at construction, kind of a similar trend. I could look at hydraulic excavators. There's a trend there, but other asset types behave differently. So skid steers have shown much more stable pricing through the time period, right? It makes sense based on the usage and the market conditions. Vocational trucks is another example where you've actually seen those truck prices actually hold up relatively well. So, we think this is a really powerful tool to help A, to understand what's going on with prices, but B, to be able to drill into your asset types and be able to understand what's happening with the market and the equipment that you've got. So let me get to the second sort of set of questions around, what's my gear worth? So what we're able to do now in this make model trends and make model pricing is actually now drill down much more precisely into what's going on. So in this, I first select a manufacturer, then I can pick a category, and then I can see what's going on. In this example, for example, we're showing John Deere agriculture tractors, the overall trends in terms of volume, age, and usage metrics. But just to continue the excavator story, I'll just go in and select Cat excavators. And again, when you have access to this tool, this is the kind of exploration you're able to do. You can just go click through these menus and decide what you want to look at. So we've seen a big bump in Cat excavators on our platforms. We've seen median age dropping. We've seen the usage dropping as newer assets are coming on the market in our channels. But I think that specific question about what about my asset? So let's say I've got some 330 DLs. And you can see, right, all of the different variants on 330s. We've got 330s, C, CL, all the variants. But just to keep it simple, let's just go for a DL for this, and there's the variants there, but we'll just stick with a DL. And I can see what's going on. Okay, well, here's the volume trend, 2017 down year on DLs, 2018 coming back up more towards 2016 levels. The asset's aging, so not surprisingly, the median age continues to climb, but usage is sort of flattening out. So I can see that. So I go to the next tab on make model pricing. I'm keeping the same selection. So I've got Cat excavators 330 DL, and now I'm starting to see the pricing information. So we're showing 2014 to 2018. You can select the number of years you want to look at. This black line is the median line, so you can see that the DLs have actually held up pricing pretty well, actually seeing a slight increase in median pricing. And each one of these is a data point. So if you sort of scan over here, you can see, all right, that was a 2007, sold for $50K. in 2018. But most helpfully, I think, is to show how prices change with respect to asset age and asset usage. Now, we know from our machine learning that there's probably like 50 different variables that go into actually determining a price accurately. A couple of important ones are usage, but there's a lot of other factors: condition, location, features, et cetera, that make a big difference in pricing. You all know that. But here's a couple that I think just help you understand sort of over time, what's the typical depreciation on an asset. So you can see here we've got versus age. Again, each one of these is a data point. Tableau is drawing a line here. It's indicative, I think, of kind of the average performance at a certain usage level. And so, say for example, with 7,000 hours, you're right around 80K in terms of where that line is, and you've got a bunch of data points that can help you kind of understand how old that asset was at the time it was sold and the hours. And so I think that that gives you a pretty good basic indication of pricing. And then if you want even more detail, let's see, I got to get back to the right screen here. That's not the right one. Okay, if you want to have more detail, we'll go back to the home page. For RB Asset Solutions, we'll click on auction transaction detail, and this takes you to our equipment auction pricing page. And so here, I'm able to actually pull down some very detailed information. So I'm going to select CAT. We're going to go back to our 330 DL. Oops. And I might say I want to look at meter readings from 7 to 9,000 hours. We're only looking back 180 days. Maybe I want to look back a couple of years. Okay, so now I'm getting a full range of assets. I can see the year, the model, the serial number. I got the location. I've got a description. I've got the photo of the item. So I can very quickly sort of scan through these and try to figure out what's the most representative item here. And, if it's an Iron Planet item, I can click on that, and that'll actually take me to the item page on Iron Planet, where I can look at the 143 photos. I can scan down. I can see the inspection report. I can see a ton of information on that. So that is like a way that you can start to drill down pretty much from top-level pricing down into make models, and now I'm looking at specific assets that I think are really relevant for me. And that's very accessible, very easy for you to get your eyes on. So the final thing I want to show you is getting back to the question about my own results. And so we have the ability to show you what your results are on our platforms. And this is just mock data. I'm going to show you live data on this one, but this is saying, okay, well, what was my mix in terms of platform? What was my volume? This is for me as a company, right? What have I sold across Ritchie? What have I sold across Iron Planet, Marketplace, et cetera? What kinds of assets have I sold? And then what's all the detail behind the different types of equipment that I've actually sold? If you are a large construction company, for example, with multiple branches or even subsidiary companies, we can actually create a view here where we pull all of your customer information in and give you a view across your full enterprise in terms of the disposition activity as well. So so anyway, that's the quick tour. Again, just to emphasize, what I have shown you today is live. It's running on Tableau. It exists. You get to do whatever I've done here today on the screen. So and I'll turn it back to Max.
Thanks, Ken. So as you can see here, right? And as I mentioned at the outset, this is a product we launched, version 1, just about 2 months ago. It is a compilation, right, of technology that we brought together, from, our Mascus group in Europe, from the Equipment One group, and from, the Iron Planet team. And, we have taken these technology platforms and, as well as the data, and we've begun to stitch them together to offer this comprehensive solution. If you think about this, we have today, we run thousands of web shops around the world. Our data solutions, we work with banks, financing arms, construction companies to provide them data. And then, from an IMS perspective, we work with OEMs, large rental companies, contractors, services companies, across, sectors, including, agriculture, construction, transportation, oil and gas, and so forth. So, like I said, it's something we've had a lot of these assets, a lot of these tools, we've had internally. And, I think as part of being a trusted advisor, the goal here is to begin, as a company to make them, available to our customers, right, on a day in, day out basis, so that you can improve the way you process your used assets. So that is a brief overview. I know we've got some questions out there, right? If you have questions, feel free to type them in now. We'll try to walk through some of those, where we can. Let me see, this field is not showing up in the best way. I am more interested in let me see, we got a question here. Are users able to download the background data? I think that's a good question. I think today it depends on what you're looking for, right? As Ken mentioned, one of the advantages we have, but I think one of the constraints we have is that we're a public company. And I think from a data perspective, being a public company is in one way unique, because this is real audited transaction data, right? This is, we're through the tool, we're giving you access to, once again, actual pricing on actual machines that transacted at an actual site. It's not scraped. It's real transactions from our database. And I think, as Ken mentioned, we have to be, a little cautious there because of, federal regulations and so forth. I'd say, downloading data is done on a case-by-case basis, and basically the specific data, the fields or data sets that are needed. But, I think, at the end of the day, we're working closely with people who are utilizing, our platform. And, we want to make it more efficient to utilize our platform. And so where it makes sense to, put specific data, give specific data, put that in the hands of customers, sellers and buyers, I think that's something we'll always entertain. We got another question about AI. How is AI and machine learning used here? I'll give a brief. I'll give you my view, and then I'll turn it over to Ken, which I think. I came into this, as I mentioned, Ken and I are both from eBay. I also, we've worked in a number of online places. One of the most interesting things about coming into the heavy equipment industry is that when you look at heavy equipment pricing, I can't think of a better problem that can be solved by machine learning and AI. And those two terms get conflated a lot, right? And but if you just take as Ken mentioned, right? We predict the price of every piece of equipment that comes into our ecosystem. And the reason we predict that price is obviously, we do a lot of marketing. We run auctions, right? The auction process is a unique process. You never know what it's going to sell for on any given day. And so therefore, we're trying to predict the price that any piece of equipment will fetch at any auction, live, online, so forth. And the number of variables, the predictive variables that go into what is going to drive that price is just fascinating. And you'd be surprised that is it the location? Right, equipment in certain parts of the world, usage in certain parts of the world affects equipment more than in other parts of the world. Is it the actual seller, itself, right? Is it the features? Is it the condition? All of this granular information that drives the price of equipment. The fascinating thing about, coming at it from, somebody who's been selling it, as opposed to being a third party, is you have access to all this information, right? Where it was sold, what condition it was in, who the seller was, what auction site was it at, we could probably have the weather on that particular day, stuff like that, right? And I think that's where anyone can scroll through and look at data, but taking all those variables and throwing them into, a large database and letting the algorithm figure out pricing, right, is just something that's the color of the equipment, right? I mean, you would be surprised that certain colors drive pricing in different ways. So anyway, Ken, I'll let Ken, speak to this a little bit. But the idea here is, right now you link to it in Tableau, but we'll be bringing this to bear inside the IMS itself, right? So when you load a piece of equipment, right, and the next version of this, version 2, version 3, you'll actually see in the IMS itself the algorithmic generated price. Once again, based on real transactions. Ken, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about kind of the processes and the machine learning and so forth.
Sure. So we could spend hours talking about it. We spent years working on it. More generally, we use machine learning and AI across many facets of the company. So we've talked about algorithmic pricing. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We use machine learning to help predict, sales leads internally, which customers we think might be the right time for them to sell. We also predict the performance of items, and we use that to help us actually really focus our marketing efforts. We look at items that are getting traction, items that are not getting as much traction as we'd like, and we are constantly sort of targeting our marketing efforts to make sure that we get the right price realization, whether it's on the live platform or it's on the online platforms. With respect to the algorithmic pricing, we've been working on it for 2 years. It is, Matt thinks it's the perfect opportunity for machine learning. Actually getting it to work takes a little bit of doing behind the scenes, but we price all our assets every week, and what's great about that is that it's highly scalable and highly efficient. And as we think about making this service available to you as you enter your information into the IMS system, is that we can be feeding in up-to-date prices, which are based on the current market conditions. As Matt alluded to, some of the variables that end up being important are ones that you could see from the data that we talked about today. We talked about usage. We talked about make, model, obviously, the number of the age, et cetera. But actually things like who the seller is, the seller tenure, the location of the item, the combination of features, the combination of condition and features, these all interplay to help us become much more accurate on the pricing. So we're excited to continue to develop that, and then ultimately, hopefully, have release 2 or 3 of the IMS, actually incorporate that into the IMS and provide that as a service.
Okay, thanks, Ken. A couple of other questions here. We got a question. Hey, do I need to, swallow this thing hook, line, and sinker, or can I purchase various components? So, when we think of RB Asset Solutions, we actually think of, a very sort of a la carte or componentized, solution. So if you need just a web shop, you can have a web shop. If you need an IMS and a web shop, you can have an IMS and a web shop. If you need, just the data, we offer just the data. Like I said, we work with, on the data side, we work with, financial services company that just use the data for, asset valuations, right? We, on the web shop side, we work with, dealers who, I don't have, 10,000 pieces of equipment. I've just got 100. I just want a simple web shop. We can work with, we can work with you there. And, these components are reasonably priced. We have a, SaaS-based pricing model, right? We charge, depending upon the number of units you're trying to manage or the amount of data you need. It's a monthly hosting fee. If you're doing a lot of business, with RB on the marketplace side, we can sort of manage between the hosting fee and the various commission fees on the marketplace. So, look, the goal here is once again, right, is to provide you the tools to be a trusted advisor, to help you dispose of your assets. So whatever component you need, as part of this, we can work with you in that way. We have another question here. Basically, if you sell stuff through a web shop, is that data available to everybody else? Right now, no. Right? If you are, if you are working, if you have your own web shop and you are selling, tools equipment on your own website, that's your data. That's not commingled with the RB channel sales data in any way. We understand as a technology provider that is a highly important, privacy component, to your business. Now, down the road, should we decide to offer a product that would start to include that would obviously be done on a willingness. We'd reach out to folks and say, hey, would you be willing to be part of an aggregate solution in that way? Because I know there are other companies out there that do that, but that would be clearly on an opt-in situation because look, we've been in the online space for a while. We understand the nature of data. We understand the privacy of these transactions. We understand our position in the marketplace, and we're coming at this as being I'll keep using this word, trusted advisor. It's your data, you own it, right? It's your transaction. If you're selling it on your own website, we're just here to support you with the technology and services that you need. Got another question on here. What are the tools for connecting a customer's fleet in a business system to this platform? I think, obviously there are a number of ways we can set this up. We've worked with APIs, right? With various established business systems. Obviously we can do FTP transfers. We can do, some of the companies we've worked with are SAP, JD Edwards, right? Oracle, right? We have APIs that, we can easily connect to those ERP systems. Hey, at the same time, we also realize that, a lot of people have their stuff in an Excel spreadsheet, right? So if you want to send over a file upload, it can be as simple as that, exchanges on an FTP server, stuff like that. So it runs the gamut because we know that, our partners have different levels of systems that they're using internally. Okay, I think that question here about normalization.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah.
Briefly, that's a technical question. So how do we normalize for age and usage? Yeah, actually, what we're doing is we're putting, again, a very wide variety of variables into the model. The methodologies that we use normalize for usage, and what's important to understand is that you know, in this approach, basically what you're looking at is it's not just normalized usage, it's actually normalized usage for that 330 DL that's of a certain age, located in a certain location, et cetera, or how much is a ripper worth on a particular dozer of a certain size in a certain location. So it's very complex modeling, but it effectively establishes what is the value of an extra mile or decrement. What's the value of a ripper for a particular piece of equipment? It's extremely detailed. So there's a lot of technical stuff behind that, but it's a fairly sophisticated method for dealing with that.
Okay. So I think that runs the gamut on the questions, and I know we're butting up against time. So I just want to thank everybody today for joining us. What really is the start of this journey, right? And I think look for updates and new releases over the course of this year and beyond. We'll be in Orlando. The team here will be in Orlando. So if you want to chat. If you want to chat with us and get into more detail, we'll be in Orlando. Obviously, we have, our TMs and primarily our strategic account reps are versed in this. So, happy to, going forward, happy to, if there's something here of interest, let your rep know and we can arrange a deeper dive. Keep you updated as we go through the various releases of this. Coming down the road, as I mentioned on the pricing tool, we'll be integrating the algorithmic pricing into the IMS. We'll be integrating more and more features of our ecosystem, right, into the IMS, right? Things like asset appraisal services, which is another offering that is well used. Equipment tracking on our sites, things of that nature. You'll begin to see, IMS as the hub for all of this. So with that, once again, thank you very much, and hope to talk to you all very, very soon.